You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 155. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where I show you how life with less alcohol is more fun than you think. I work with high achievers who struggle to drink a glass of wine without it turning into 2 bottles. I'm the one they call when they want to take it or leave it. So if you want to change your relationship with alcohol that doesn't involve counting days sober, you're in the right place. Hi everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. All right, today we're starting with a big question. What if your drinking is making your life smaller? And smaller than it could be, or smaller than you would want it to be. Yes, we're talking about this. And by the way, this applies to everyone, right? Whatever your definition of a big life is, right? This applies to those of you who travel all the time, or maybe you've got a huge job, or maybe you're a stay-at-home parent, or maybe you're retired, right? This isn't about how big your life is on paper in terms of, you need to have a certain sort of profile. And it isn't about comparing yourself with other people, but really how you see your life and what you would really deeply want for yourself and for your life. Yeah, if you could just sort of roll the dice now and choose and make a magic wish and it would happen. So I want to talk about this with regard to alcohol and what hidden costs could be lurking there that I would want you to be aware of so that you can make a full analysis and evaluation of what it is you want, right? And these hidden costs go beyond the physical health, which we would know about, but they affect things like your relationships, your career, your passions, and even maybe your sense of purpose. And these are the things that come out when I'm coaching with people. And when we see just really, I always think of alcohol as sort of being like the body of the spider in our life when it's sort of set down root. And we have all these tentacles that go out into all areas of our life. And we don't really realize how much of an impact it's having until we start to imagine that. So we're going to talk about that today. And again, remember, I say all of this not from the perspective that alcohol is poison and you need to rip it out root and branch. Not at all. You are all grown adults. You know what it is what you want for yourself. You can choose and do whatever you want. But I want to offer the questions and just have the conversation so you can start to do a little, maybe an evaluation for your own life, just to start. Because the good news is that once you start to recognize these kind of hidden costs, or even if that is too judgmental, once you start to recognize how you think your life is actually becoming smaller, then you have the power to make changes that will open that space up for more opportunities and for more fulfillment, right? You basically get to decide, if you were to color in your life, what you want to be in there, right? It's a bit like organizing our life. It's like we're organizing a room in our house. We don't have to have the furniture that's already there when we buy the house. We don't have to have the furniture that our husband wants. We don't have to have the furniture, the type of furniture or wallpaper or whatever that our parents had. We get to decide that. As an adult human, you get full authority over that. But I think a lot of people, when it comes to alcohol, they say, I really want to do that, but I'm stuck and I don't know how. So I'm going to talk about how to sort of get yourself into the mode of really assessing if alcohol is making your life small, so that you can then use that as the jumping point off to say, well, what are you going to do about it? All right, so let's dive in. So the first thing I want to talk about is really the subtle effects of drinking. And this is something that is really easy to overlook. We tend to think of alcohol in terms of big nights out, or even in the context of serious health problems like addiction. Like when I introduce myself, people always want to talk about addiction and Alcoholics Anonymous and all of that stuff, right? That's sort of where the brain goes. But as you know, that is not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about how we will change our relationship, how we can change our relationship with alcohol in a way that works for you, right? Whatever that means for you. We are a judgment-free zone here. And by the way, when you decide that you want to make a change, or maybe you're sort of toying with the idea of wanting to make a change. You maybe haven't made a firm decision. And if you're listening to this podcast, you are in good company. I am here to help you with these decisions. Well, actually, to start with, your drinking might be quote unquote moderate by many people's standards. I mean, I know that was the case for me. I wasn't getting the result from life I wanted. I didn't like the person I became when I was drinking. I certainly didn't like the fact that it was kind of like part and parcel of my life, sort of was you will have a drink pretty much every night just because you do. Didn't like any of that. But when I talk to people about this in my life, and by the way, this is one of the things that can happen when you sort of talk to what I would call real life people who don't understand what's going on. They would tell me to stop making such a fuss. Look, Anna, you're not getting drunk every night. Maybe some of them even said you drink less than me. Right. But for me and for so many of my clients, drinking has a way of creeping into our lives. Right. It's kind of like that spider. Right. It grows bigger and bigger, affecting us in ways that we don't always notice. And listen, when that stops working for us, when we start getting the results in the life that we don't want, that is when we start to notice. And that, by the way, is when we can freak out, because then, as happened with me, I said, right, I'm just going to sort this out. And I wasn't able to, right? I wasn't able to sort it out like I would sort out other projects. But when we notice, it's then on us, right? It's then on us to make a change. But we don't always see that for a while. So let's look at some of those factors that might be hidden from you and some of the stories, perhaps, that you might be telling yourself. First, I want to talk about energy. Now, alcohol is a depressant, which you probably already know, and that means that even a little bit can leave you feeling sluggish the next day, right? We have the big woohoo for 18 to 20 minutes as our blood alcohol levels rise, but after that, it falls and falls and falls. So yes, you might feel relaxed after a drink, but what about the next morning, right? We all know that. We know there's going to be a consequence here. We know how it feels to maybe drag ourselves out of bed feeling tired and uninspired. Now, maybe you're telling yourself you're fine. Maybe you're sort of like, yeah, this is okay. I know this is because of the booze and I'm fine with that. But I want you to ask, right, deep down, are you fine with that? Because you do know you're not operating at your best then. And again, you might say, half a bottle of wine to not operate at my best once a week, that's fine. Okay, not judging, but ask the question. And by the way, a related piece to this is even a couple of drinks here and there can mess with your sleep, right? We know this. And when you don't sleep well, your mood is going to dip, your focus is going to drop, and your energy, can disappear. I know that used to happen for me. And this is why your productivity can take a hit and motivation fades, right? And that's when you sort of start to get into, oh, my goals are seeming even further and further away. And by the way, I did a deep dive on sleep in episode 134. Right, when I interviewed a sleep expert called Renee Roberts. So you might want to take a listen to that if you are interested in digging more into sleep. But anyway, back to the idea of energy. How many times have you been in a situation where you can actually see that alcohol has drained your energy? Right, maybe you wanted to go for a run or work on some kind of project in the evening. Or do some reading. No, I used to have this. I wouldn't have the energy to read because I knew it meant that I'd be rereading the same page over and over again. But in these situations, maybe you're feeling too tired or too off, right, to do any of it. Now, it's easy to brush this off. But over time, this pattern of having a glass of wine or two or three, especially when you are not conspicuously and consciously choosing it, that's the important piece here, choice, then these additional drinks can chip away at your life, right? And they can prevent you from showing up as your best self or showing up as how you would want to show up if you could choose. The related element to this is I often have clients who tell me that they don't really suffer from hangovers. And actually, this was a bit of a pain in many ways because it kind of prevented them from getting help sooner, right? Because they saw less of an impact on their energy and so on from alcohol. But then what happens, and this is fascinating, when we start working together, we start understanding what's going on behind the drinking, why we're drinking and so on, the rest of it. And we start reducing the amount, and then they start choosing to drink less frequently as well. Then it's only then that they start to see that perhaps they weren't operating at their best, that they were having hangovers, but that kind of meh feeling, right, had become so normalized that they hadn't noticed it. They might not have been in the toilet all night. Don't want to get too explicit and graphic here, but that sort of overriding feeling of not feeling so great was so kind of ingrained they just didn't see it. And it's only when they were now feeling fresher, because they were starting to make the changes, that they could see that their previous energy levels were low. So I will offer that to you. If you're somebody who says, I don't really suffer from hangovers, not all hangovers are equal. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is, and this is really eye-opening, this is the opportunity cost of drinking. And I've looked at it this way because, again, this was something, as you may know if you've listened to me for a while, I come from the corporate background. I used to run a very huge organization in a Fortune 500 company. I had this big P&L, millions of dollars P&L. And we were always managing projects and deciding what to work on, what not to work on. And really an opportunity cost is all about effective use or mindful use of time, right? We all have limited time. We all have a certain amount of time and resources. So every time we make a choice, we make one choice to do something, it means we're effectively saying no to something else, right? It's not and, because there comes a limit. Maybe you can do a few ands, but then there will come a limit. But the one thing we don't always realize is we don't look at this when we're thinking about choosing alcohol. So what are we missing out on when we're choosing alcohol? And we tend, again, go to the extremes. We start to worry about if we don't choose alcohol, what we will miss out from. See how we do that? We do the opportunity cost that way, because that is our brain going to worst case scenario. But I want to offer that we can look at it from the other side too. So when we say yes to the wine, or yes to the second glass of wine, or whatever it is, however that looks for you, remember, no judgment. What are you saying no to? Because you will be saying no to something. So I want to throw out some points of thought here for you to consider. Right? Think about how many things do you not do because of drinking, right? The time you're spending maybe socializing and recovering, or even thinking about having a drink. Have you added that up? You might want to do a little tally mark thing, sort of stay very focused, add up the number of hours that takes. It can take up a lot of space in your life. Now listen, if you want to have a drink now and then, no problem, but I'm talking here about the repeat, patterned, automatic behavior of pouring the nightly wine when you would deeply prefer to do something else. This could be something that gets you closer to your dreams and goals, such as working on an art project or a side hustle, or in my case, actually, it was writing my novel. It's not until I gave up drinking, really, or just completely making alcohol so irrelevant, that I realized how much time I had wasted, the opportunity cost, because I'd been so sluggish. I actually wasn't sharp enough to write. So there's all of that stuff, right? It's getting in the way of that. Or it could just be that you're not, so it doesn't have to just be what other things you would be doing. It could just be that now if you were no longer in the thrall of wine, that you could just come home and relax without it, right? So all that time, all that nightly negotiation, you would spend actually with your feet up, doing the thing that you want to do, that you've been using the alcohol to try and create. And yes, I know I spent years effectively writing off my evenings, and I couldn't even hazard a guess as to how many. But you're not just missing out on work or hobbies or these relaxation ways either. Have you noticed how alcohol can sometimes push you into environments where you're not growing, right? Where how much time do you spend in bars, clubs, or even casual drinking settings that on paper you would not choose for yourself, right? But you find yourself saying yes to them because it's part of the habit, or because you don't want people to think you have a drinking problem, so you have a drink to prove you're okay. Yes, that is wild, isn't it? How often have you done that, right? I don't want people to think I've got a problem. I really don't want to drink, but I'm going to have a drink, and then they'll think I'm fine. Or maybe we find ourselves in these situations because it is simply the path of least resistance. Now, all of these are all what I call missed opportunities. Some will have more than others. And this is the purview, this is the playground of mindless drinking, right? This is the time spent in the cycle of drinking and recovering that you didn't want to do. Now, that is time that you could have been investing in what really matters to you, whether that's your career, your relationships, your health, or maybe it's just, watching something on the TV and you just want to do it with a clear head. Right? It doesn't have to be some grandiose point here. The next point I want to talk about is the people you hang out with and the impact they have on you making your life small, right? You've probably heard the saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But here's the reality. If the people around you are pushing you to drink, or just really encouraging you to drink, or normalizing or glorifying drinking, if that kind of is the default, that can have a huge impact on your habits and your future. I want you to think about your social circle right now. Who do you spend time with? Are they people who inspire you to be your best? Or are they people who expect you to keep drinking even if you don't want to? Now, of course, there could be people in between, but you get what I'm getting at here. It doesn't have to necessarily be over peer pressure, right? We're not 14 anymore. We don't have to do something just because the in-crowd does. I find it's much more of a subtle influence, because when I talk to my clients about this, about other people, they say, yes, it is very normalized, but actually my friends would respect if I said I didn't want to drink, if I wanted to drink less, right? So actually the issue is with the person who's not willing to follow through on this, right? So it's not, we're making it about other people, but actually it's about us, which is good news because we get to control ourselves. But what can happen is we get into a routine, right? It might be happy hour after work. It could be casual drinks at the weekend. It could be go to the bar at the opposite the railway station on a Friday. It could be meeting up with friends just to catch up over a glass of wine. Right? And over time, these small habits start to feel like they're the only way we connect with people. And then by the opposite side, if we want to meet up and connect with these people, if we take away the wine, we are not going to have that same experience, and it's going to be less than, and we do not want that, right? So it's not so much that you're worried about what these other people are thinking or that they would try and convince you, but more, what do you want to be spending your time doing? Do you want to be spending your time in these drinking situations to such a degree? There's nothing that says you need to drink if you're out with these people, of course. But if the only thing you have in common with them is drinking, you may want to reevaluate this. You may not like thinking about this, but then you've got to think, what do I want? Again, is this making my life small? If I'm talking to these people, I'm hanging out with these people once a week, whatever it is, twice a week, and the only thing we do is drink, and I don't want to be doing that anymore, there's an opportunity cost for that time there, and for that energy you're putting into that friendship. I know I did this. I had friends, I may have recounted this on the podcast before, because I had these 2 friends in particular that all we would do was drink with them. We would travel to where they lived. They lived on a town the other side of the country, and we would stay in a local hotel for the night. It was a fun weekend. But then I started to realize that what happened was we'd see them on Friday and we would drink, and then pretty much all day Saturday we'd spend in the bar, and then we go home, and it was like, this is a waste. I do not want to do this. And again, I wasn't getting drunk. It was just hanging out, sitting in the bar, chewing the cud kind of thing. It's like, no, there is more out there than this. It can be tough to break out of this cycle, especially if your friends or colleagues are all drinking and you like these people. Maybe you genuinely like these people, but here's the thing. You do you and they will do them, right? And if, as you do this, you start to see that some of these friendships start to fade because alcohol is less prominence in your life, all right, c'est la vie, right? That then frees up other time for you, for new activities and new friends. So rather than thinking it as a loss, think about what you will gain. Always go towards what you will gain. So what would your life look like if you made that shift, right? If you could identify these pockets of what I've been calling opportunity cost, and you made that shift, you might start attracting new friends. Go figure, right? There could be new relationships in your life, one where alcohol doesn't dominate the conversation or the weekend plans. Maybe if you're moving to a new job and you decide to make this shift, right? You're not known as the drinker in the office, right? People, they'll view you differently because you're showing up differently. I just want you to imagine the positive influence that could have on you, your habits and your goals and what you want for yourself. Again, back to the headline here, is this all making your life small? The 4th thing I want to talk about is the idea of being a role model for your children. This comes up a lot. This comes a lot in my coaching, and it really is close to heart for all parents, right? We all want to be good role models for our children. And we often think about alcohol and drinking as a personal choice, but then when you do have children, really things change around this, right? The way you approach drinking, the way you manage alcohol, it becomes a lesson for your children, whether you intend for it to be or not, right? They observe. We know this. They're like little sponges. They're observing all the time. So ask yourself, how often do your children see yourself drinking? Do they notice it as something you rely on to relax, cope, or celebrate? And even if, they don't really see you drink, if you keep it sort of away from them, do they pick up on any patterns in your behavior? They're very perceptive. And they will watch closely and they will imitate. And this happens especially as they start to approach their teenage years and they start to try on what's it like to be a grown-up. And I'm not saying this to make anyone out there feel bad if you're thinking, ugh, no, I must be a terrible role model. I just want you to think about the power you have to make that change, right? If it is something, if you're thinking, no, I'm not optimum at that, how do you change that, right? And to think about how we're modeling our behavior. So rather than just thinking, oh, I need to change because I'm showing them that when I'm stressed, I drink. Think about the huge upside in you showing up in a way, you're showing them a life where you handle stress yourself. You celebrate victories and you can relax without alcohol. You're going to give them a hugely powerful example of mindfulness and the way you're living your life. So it won't be so much, don't do this because it's bad, but look at what I'm doing. You're celebrating, you've got no champagne. How is that, right? This can spark conversations and be a very positive role model. So then I want you to imagine that and really run with that and imagine how different things could be if your children really saw you thriving, right? Really saw you thriving without alcohol. What would they learn about focus and energy and resilience and pick up about living a bigger, fuller life? But really the subtext in all of this topic about children is, and I think this is even more important, how would you feel about yourself? Right? Much as you want to be a stellar role model, you don't actually control what they think. I mean, you could be doing all this and they could be sitting there thinking you're real boring, right? Because they're getting all these other influences from other people. But that's okay, because we never control them anyway. All you can do is stay in your lane. And the more you're feeling good about how you're showing up, and you're showing up in a way that you are proud of, you're going to start to feel more confident and better about yourself. And then guess what? That is going to make you continue to do that even more. You're going to show up for yourself even more strongly. And that is going to be something that the children are also going to notice. But you get to be the person you want to be right now, which feels fantastic. So as I've been going through this, if you are thinking, I think I need to take a look at this, I'm not sure, drinking might be making my life small, I really encourage you to take a moment to reflect. So I'm going to do that with you now. And this is, I think, a really important conversation. Right? It's sort of a self-assessment. And I'm big, I'm big on evaluation. So this is like looking at yourself in the mirror and doing some assessment. So take a deep breath and we're going to think about your life right now. So here are the questions that I would propose. Of course, you don't have to answer them all, but take a selection. When it comes to energy and health, how do you feel physically and mentally after drinking? Are you energized or drained the next day? How often do you feel sluggish, unmotivated, or unproductive because of drinking? And when it comes to relationships, does drinking affect any of your relationships with family, friends, or colleagues? You might want to go down through the different people. Are you spending less quality time with loved ones because of alcohol? How would you choose to spend your time with these people in your life? When it comes to personal growth and career, on a scale of 1 to 10, are you reaching your full potential at work? Or maybe in your personal goals? Are you missing out on opportunities because of drinking or recovering from drinking? And again, this isn't to make yourself feel bad. This is just to know where you are. And if you didn't have so much drinking in your life, where would you invest your passions or career advancement, right? Where would you put that energy? Think of it, right? You just freed up all this energy. Where would you put it? When it comes to dealing the idea of being a role model for your children, if you're a parent, how do you want your children to view drinking? You could, again, choose. You can write it on a blank sheet. How do you want them to view drinking? Are you modeling that behavior? Right? Because again, while you don't control them, you can control you to do the optimum behavior in your eyes. Think about the kind of future you want to show them. Do you want to show them a life where alcohol plays a major role? Or where you see it, they would see it as really an incidental by-part of your life? And when it comes to social circles and influences, and this really, I think this is probably one of the quote-unquote low-hanging fruit. This is a place to really start, right? Consider who you're spending time with and how is that influencing your drinking habits. Is it for the good or for the bad? Do you feel like you're being true to yourself in those settings? Are you tolerating sessions? Are you using alcohol to tolerate that? Or would you choose something else for yourself? If you made changes to your drinking habits, how might your social circle, types of people you attract, how might that change? And if you could start from scratch and pick your friends and acquaintances, you might want to write this one in, was it invisible ink? If I could start from scratch and pick my friends and acquaintances, the ones I surround myself with, would I let some of the current people drop? And by the way, know that you need no permission to do that right now. You don't have to ghost people. You don't have to tell them why. But you can just, you don't have to be rude about it or silly about it. But you get to control that. So I really want you to take a few moments to reflect on that. Where do you stand? What needs to change, if anything, for you to feel more sort of just driving your life to where you want it to be, where you're creating what you want? And remember, this isn't necessarily about going sober unless that's what you want. And if you think you want to change, take that as a little fire. Take this as a little fire to light you up. Again, you don't have to know exactly what you want, but just start exploring how it could look for you. So today we've explored how drinking can have a subtle but powerful impact on your life in ways that you might not see, right? It can affect your energy, opportunities, relationships, and even your role as a parent. But the good news is that once you recognize these patterns, you can start making different choices that will expand your life, not shrink it. Think about that. Just think about expanding your life. So if you're feeling inspired, which I truly hope you are, I encourage you to take the first step. Right, so start by asking yourself those questions we covered today. Re-listen to the podcast, pause it, answer the questions. Reflect on where you stand and decide if you want to keep living this way, up to you, or if you really want to make a change, and then decide on one little thing you can do differently today. Yes, today, not tomorrow, or not one day, but today. You absolutely have the power to drink less, to drink mindfully, and to build the life you want. And if you know that's what you want, but you just don't know how or where to start, I can help. Go to 90dayslater.co and book a call with me. It is free. We will talk about where you are, where you want to be, and how to get there. In fact, I will build the exact steps on the call so that you can see the path to get there. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend who might benefit from it. And don't forget to subscribe for more insights on mindful drinking coming to you every week. Until next time, live intentionally and remember, your life does not have to be small. I'll see you next week. If you like what you're learning in the podcast and you want to take the work further and achieve total freedom around alcohol, let's talk. I help my clients stop reaching for that first glass of wine the moment 6 p.m. rolls around and they don't miss out on life. Email me for more information on anna@90dayslater.co. And if you did enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate if you'd leave a rating and review to help others find the 90 Days Later podcast.